So this is the introduction to IP cameras. At any time you can click on the raise hand function, or you can send me a question through the chat and I will enable audio for you, and then we can discuss any questions that you may have. So today we're going to go over the IP definition, some compression types, picture comparisons, application types, the connectivity of it, switches, power options, NVR, and I'll give you a sample diagram on how it all works. IP stands for Internet Protocol. It's a method of data transmission. It's a lot different from analog signals, which transmits composite video signals. Composite video resolution is limited to 640 by 480, while IP is not. There are many different kinds of compression types. There's MJPEG, which can work on lower hardware requirements. H.264 is the newer one. It's a more compressed format, uses less bandwidth, less hard drive space, and it gives you the same quality and time for recording for using less space on the hard drive. So here's a basic comparison comparing a 1.3 megapixel versus a 560 TV line analog camera. As you can see, the top picture is 1280 by 1024, which is 1.3 megapixels. The bottom picture is the limits of analog. You hit the limits of analog already, which is 0.4 megapixels. So as you can see, the resolution is almost 4 times greater when you're comparing a 1.3 to an analog camera. So that's why we go IP, because we are not limited in the data and basically the resolution. As you can see from the bottom picture, when digitally zooming up to the license plates, it gets all blurred out and the edges are jagged. That's because the resolution is very low. And the top one, which has a higher resolution, gives you a better picture when digitally zooming in. These are different application types. Depending on what your application is, that is what you would choose as your camera type. You can go with a weatherproof bullet, an indoor dome, vandal-proof dome, a box camera, and if you need IR lighting, you would choose a camera with a built-in IRs, or you can use an external IR illuminator. To connect the IP cameras, you would use unshielded twisted pair Cat5e, Cat6 for data connectivity. The maximum cable length for IP cameras is 100 meters, which comes about 330 feet. Any further than that, you would need to either put a switch in between, or you would need to run fiber. And the connectors that IP cameras use are standard RJ45 connectors. And then to connect the cameras together, we would use network switches. It basically connects all your devices together, and depending on how many IP cameras you're going to use, then will determine how many, like a network switch with how many ports. So let's say you're using a 10 IP camera system, you would need to have a network switch with 10 or more ports. Here are your different power options. cameras operate on 12 VDC. You can power using a plug-in 12 VDC power supply, or you can use central power supplies, or you can additionally use PoE, which is power over Ethernet. Using PoE, you can run data and power on a single 4-pair cable. The benefits are that you don't have to run extra wire for power. So here on the bottom we have a plug-in power transformer that comes with every IP camera. Or you can run the central power supply, which is the next picture. You use a little central box that you mount on the wall, and then you can basically run all the power to it. The next one we have is a power injector, a PoE injector, which injects power into the Cat5 or Cat6 data cable. And then we have a PoE switch. A PoE switch is basically a switch and a PoE injector combined into one. The next component is an NVR, which stands for a network video recorder. The NVR is different from a DVR, a PC-based DVR. Is you do not need a video capture cards needed. It's all software-based. So the cameras do come with a free 64-channel software. It does work with other third-party NVR software too, like QNAP and Milestone and ONSSI. So depending on the number of cameras and what resolution you will be running on will determine your hardware requirements. Here's a sample installation diagram. So here we have our IP cameras, and they all connect to a network switch, and your NVR will connect to it too. And then if you need internet on it, then you would connect the switch to a modem router. So this is basically, we went over the basics of what's required for an IP system. So does anyone have any questions before we start on our NVR setup? So now we're going to go do a sample setup of an NVR system connecting IP cameras. It's very easy to do. I will go over exactly what is required to connect it all together. At any time, you can ask a question if you have any questions during the way. So first off, we're going to basically find our IP cameras that is on the system. So we will basically run the IP wizard, which will find our IP cameras that are on our network. What this software does is any IP cameras that are on the system, it will search for it, and then it will tell you exactly what IP it's at. As you can see, we have 2 IP cameras on our system right now. So we have the GS825 MIPC and the GS880 MIPC. So once we know our 2 IP addresses for our IP cameras, we're going to connect them to our NVR. So basically now we are going to create our NVR. To create our NVR, we first install the software. Here I basically ran the software, told it where to install it, and then it's extracting and installing it right now. So now basically we have the software installed, so now we're going to run the software. So here's our software. So now we're going to go do a sample configuration of our, basically our IP cameras in our system. So first we go to System Setup. And here we go, here under the Systems tab, we can basically set it a storage configuration. We can set it where to record. We can additionally set it to record it on the NAS drive too, which is a network attached storage, if we don't want to record on the NVR itself. And here you would, like basically set up the startup configurations, like you want to auto start or auto record, make it full screen, and have it auto log in. So now we're going to connect our cameras that we found earlier. Okay, the first camera we found was the GS825 MIPC. We found that camera on 10.1.10.19. Then we put in the port that it was on, which is default at 80, and put in our login credentials. Then we would hit add. Then we would add our next camera, which is the GS880 MIPC that we found, which was on 10.1.10.21. It was also on port 80. Additionally, we can basically put in an off-site camera if we do have like 4 separate offices. Let's say one of your customers has an office in different cities or in different buildings. You can have it centrally record depending on your internet upload bandwidth. So we'll connect also an off-site camera. So we have that camera on a different address. So we basically put in the IP address where the off-site camera was. So now we have 3 cameras on there. On each of the cameras, you can always tell it like what kind of parameters to record at and what resolution. We can have an H.264 and tell it what resolution to start recording at. Here we can create our different users with different credentials and permissions. So that is basically how we, connected all the cameras. So now we'll go to see how it all works. So as you can see, as quickly as we connected all the cameras together and how easy it was. Any questions so far? So this is basically our NVR system, where it connects all the IP cameras through software and records them. The NVR system can also control a pan-tilt camera. We have a pan-tilt camera on channel 2, so you can see that we can move the pan-tilt camera if we do run a pan-tilt camera on the system. So basically, that's a good thing about pan-tilt cameras, that you can have one camera and kind of tour the whole room. There's also a downside of having a pan-tilt camera because sometimes it is always moving and you might miss something. So it's really up to your application on what kind of cameras to use. And basically, if you have an additional monitor, you can create an EMAP of the separate monitor too, as in this function right here. Here we would upload a basic diagram of the office, and we would put the cameras in, say, like in Office 1, the second camera, the pan-tilt camera, Office 2, and the outside camera on this one. So on the second monitor, if an event does happen, you can always click on the camera, and then it'll show you a little preview of that location. So basically, that's what the EMAP function does. And here we can set our schedule if we want to set it to, say, record on a certain day or record motion. Hi, Brian. You have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask you how do you put the map in? So if you get like a floor plan of a house or something, you can just put their floor plan in?
Yes. So basically, you upload it into the NVR system, and then whenever you click on the EMAP, then the floor plan will come up, and that's where you designate where the cameras go. And at any time, they can just bring up the floor plan by pushing the EMAP button.
Nice.
So you upload it into the system saves it. As you can see, like we have a sample floor plan earlier, and then if there's an event does happen, they can also, or if they just want to just see what's happening at this area. So that kind of gives you a map on where the cameras are. At the same time, it makes it easy to just click on the location and gives you a little preview of what's happening right then and there.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes you can have more than one camera on one side of the house, and that way they can see exactly, look at the location that they want to click on, and it's probably easier to browse that way.
Yeah, it's easier to browse because it tells you exactly where it's at and tells you what kind of camera is there. So if you have a floor plan of the house, or like say an office building, it's like for like an office building for like security guards, it's easier for them because they can have that on a separate monitor, on the additional monitor, at the same time viewing all the cameras on the other monitor. So they can, like, say someone rang the door, they can just click on that door and then give a little preview.
Okay. And then are you going to go over the, because I know you talked about a little bit connecting a off-site camera. Are you going to go over like how to connect that as well? I know I see how you connected it here, but is there something you have to do at that location? Like say if you have somebody has a system at their home, but yet they want to connect their office cameras to that system. Is there something you have to do at the office to be able to do that?
So basically, you just gotta forward the ports out. So and then it'll be able to connect. I'll go over a little bit of port forwarding in a bit to show like exactly how it works. So we're gonna go over that like right now. I'll show you exactly how that works.
Okay, thank you.
So basically, here's how we set our schedule so we can have individual cameras do motion recording or around-the-clock recording. So now, let's say we're going to make a camera to connect off-site. So we're gonna make one of our cameras. Let's see. So basically, we log into the router first. And we're going to make the camera the 10.1.10.21 camera that was, we'll pretend it's off-site and we're going to connect to it. So basically the first thing we do is connect to the camera, which is on 10.1.10.19. Close this up. So we log in the camera with our credentials. And the first thing we do is we designate a port for it. Let's say we're going to set it on port 5000. And we run Internet Explorer instead. So since we can designate a port for it, so we can forward the port out. So we're going to say 5000. Hit OK to set it on port 5000. So now the camera port is on 5000. So now we log onto our router. So every router is different. Every network is different. So depending on what kind of router you have, what kind of modem you have, there are different terms for it. Some is port forwarding. In this case, my router is called a virtual server. So we're going to put our off-site camera here, our office camera. We'll just say it's an office camera, and we're going to connect it. The port we're going to forward out is 5000, which we designated for earlier. And IP address of it was 10.1.10.19. The private port is also 5000. So after we have that, we'll save the settings. Oh, it's conflicting. Hold on. Hi, Curly. You have a question?
Yes. So I'd like to know how can I access. I know that everything this is audio camera is just for the internet, but I would like to know if I want to access them directly from outside. Should I have to use an IP, a public IP?
No, I mean, yes. I'll show you. This is what we're basically doing. We're basically putting the camera so you can access it from outside. But to do that, we will have to enable it, the router, to let it go outside through a virtual server, or like as we're gonna do it right now. So we're gonna let it go outside. So
Okay, no
often.
problems. Okay, I'm just waiting.
So basically, we create a rule for it through the virtual server. We create the public port, and then we put in the IP address that it was on, which is 10.1.10.19.
Okay.
And the public port is 5,000. So after we have that, we save the settings like that.
Yeah.
So now we just basically enabled the camera to be seen from outside the public address.
But this is not a public address that you have. This is your internet address, right?
Well, see, watch. Now we're going to access it through the public address, which is our public address is basically 70. Watch. So now we're going to access the camera through our public address. See, so as you can see on top, this is our public address now. We basically opened it up. Instead of using the internal address is 10.1.10.19.
Okay.
See, now we're going through the public address, as you can see on top. It's no longer the 10.1.10.19.
Yes, I understand. This is the public IP that I should take this directly from my provider.
Yes. So I mean, like, depends on. This is the public IP now, as you can see, is able to access from off-site right now after we created our port forwarding and virtual server rules in our router.
Okay. So, but I think that the best thing is create a virtual server directly from my router, and to access them directly, right?
So depending. What was your question again?
But let me ask you a question. Do you think that I can use any kind of router, or should I use a router a special router that you provide?
You can use any router to, every router has a certain port forwarding rule on it, and it all depends on the router. Every router is different. It depends on your preference. You can go with the Linksys. You can get the ones that they provide. It all works.
Okay.
In the end, it all works the same way. It just uses different terms.
Okay.
Any other questions?
But what is the best router for this system? For the GSI system, what is the best router?
Oh, our system will work with any router. There's no best router. It works. Every router basically does the same thing. You can go with a more Cisco kind of commercial router, or you can go with a small home office router. It will work with either one.
But you think that the port forwarding is just you have routers that have the port forwarding. You just configure your port forwarding and just to access the camera.
Yeah, so you basically just port forward whatever designated port to the cameras that you want to let outside the system.
Okay. Good.
Any other questions?
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Haley, you have a question?
Well, yeah. How do you provide security for that port? If that's now a port forwarded public port that you can access from outside, how does it keep anybody else from accessing it if they know the IP address?
Well, I mean, they still have to know the credentials to get in the camera. So let's say we try to go to settings right here on the camera. It's still going to ask for your credentials.
Oh, okay. So you still have it, yeah.
You still have the first part of the security is the port forwarding, and then you have the security level of the camera itself. So so they can't really access it unless you want them to access your camera.
Right. Got it. Thanks.
Okay, so now we're gonna basically connect the outside camera to the. Let's go back to our NVR system. So basically, we'll edit this one to be our office, office camera. So now we can use, since we forward the ports, we can use the external address now. Delete that. Yes, Curly.
Yes, Mr. Vincent, I would like to know if you have a special software. This is a special software that you use to view the camera?
You can view the camera through the browser, or you can view it basically through our NVR software.
Okay, but do you have the special software, or should I have to download it directly from the website?
It comes with every camera, and you can additionally download from our website too under our
Because sometimes, because sometimes I have a problem when I'm viewing my camera. Because right now I am using a dedicated micro, but when I'm trying to view the camera, sometimes via my browser, that gives me an answer that that the ActiveX is not installed. When I'm trying to install the ActiveX, and it's not working.
Because our cameras, as you can see, I can view it through Firefox too, which doesn't use ActiveX. Or I can view it, or I can view it through the software, our NVR software, as you can see we have here.
Okay.
So I mean,
but this NVR software is that the standard software that we can you can see any kind of camera on any kind of NVR?
No, it's only on our cameras. So.
Okay. All right. That's what I'd like to know. Okay.
But then if you have other software, our cameras do use does use an Axis encoder. So any software that supports Axis encoding, which is Q7401, which is a specific one or a generic model, then it would work. So it will connect to our cameras too.
But after all, it's better to have Firefox too.
Yes, so our cameras do work on Firefox too. So as you can see, I'll connect to the camera using Firefox.
All right. Thank you very much.
So basically, our cameras do work on Firefox. As you can see, it does have ActiveX controls, and it also uses Java for Firefox. So basically, this is a Firefox. It doesn't require ActiveX at all. So we're just viewing it through Firefox right now. Now I'm going to go over some special features of our IP cameras. It's called the ROI function. It's basically we can create many different views off of one camera. So we're going to make this one outside camera into 3 separate cameras. This is good for, say, a driveway where you want to concentrate on the vehicle at the same time get an overall view. Or if you go view in the convenience store, you can concentrate on the cash register at the same time viewing customers paying. So we're going to set this up right now. And you can set everything up through Firefox too. So now we're going to set up our profile for our region of interest. Okay, the first one we're going to set to concentrate on this car right here. Then we can create a second one to concentrate on, let's say, on this car. Let me just move it over. We'll save that one. So now basically we created 2 region of interest video profiles. Now we're going to Yes, Joe. You have a question?
Joe? Yeah, I do. I noticed that basic software comes with each camera, but there's also you offer an upgraded software.
Well, we used to offer upgraded software, but then the basic one basically has all those features nowadays. In probably like a year ago or 2 years ago, the basic software couldn't do all this like what the upgraded software did. So now it came to a certain point where the basic can do almost everything the upgraded software can do. So there's no reason to purchase the upgraded software anymore because the basic one can do everything already.
Okay, that's great. That's all I wanted to know.
Okay. So we just basically finished our region of interest. So now we're going to connect. We're going to set that up into our NVR system. Okay, first thing we do is we connect the outside camera first, which is our overall view. So we're going to name it overall. You can name it whatever you want. It's just to designate the names to identify it later on. It's going to be on IPs 170.141.135.244. Port 80, user's admin. Password there's no password. So we can add that in. And that camera gives us our overall view. So now we're going to add our the car number 1. Same IP, same port, same user, which is which is a connect to it. But here's where it becomes different. Now we're going to set a different parameter for it. We go in parameters. We're going to choose our H.264 codec, and then we're going to pick the ROI1. So now that's our second camera. Now we're going to connect to the second car. Same IP, same credentials, and same everything. However, this one's we're going to choose a different parameter. We're going to choose the ROI1. So once we're done, we hit OK. And here is what happens when you connect all 3 cameras. It looks like 3 separate cameras, but it is only 1 camera. So that's a good thing about the higher resolution cameras. You can digitally zoom in and get same or better quality than analog cameras. As you see in picture 2, that is, for one, say that's for like a cash register or something like that, or the driveway. And then you can even go further than that with picture number 3. So that's one of the special features of our cameras that you can have it do. Any questions so far? Yes, Lee.
Well, yeah, I was just saying that's a great feature. Like I was thinking about some of the stores I've been doing where you could have the overall view, and then, like you say, you could zoom in on it. Even on this one, could you zoom in like where the entrance to the building is there, and then just make that as a separate one, and just run it at a high resolution?
Yeah. So basically, that's one of the features. I mean, it's just basically for viewing. You can record. It's just kind of like basically it sets your view to concentrate on this place. While at the same time having overall view. So that's.
But you're recording at a very high res, right? So that you could zoom into like the building entrance there and still get good resolution.
Yes. So I mean, you can't do this with anything lower than a megapixel camera, because once you do that, then the picture is basically unusable.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's a great feature.
So yeah. So I mean, there's many uses for this feature. You can use it, for stores. You can use it for homes. You can use it for parking lots. It's not limited to just like what I have here.
Well, just one of the side questions too, Vincent. Are you going to talk a little bit about the different cameras themselves? In other words, do they have the flexibility in terms of low light or LED or motion detection, that kind of stuff too, that the analog cameras do?
Yeah, I mean, the difference between the megapixels and the analogs, because the analogs do a little bit better in low light. So that's why you would use a camera like an IP camera with a built-in IR, or if it has an ICR feature, which is an infrared cut filter removal system, where at nighttime it removes its infrared filter so it can be sensitive to IR LEDs.
Okay.
So basically, I'm going to show you the different types of cameras right now. So on our web page, we will have, which is goldenstateinst.com, short for instruments. You hover over the left, you open up an additional menu. We click on high definition cameras. And here we have our different types of cameras. Here we have an indoor dome camera. We would use this for, it looks nice for office buildings, for homes. Then we have our vandal resistant camera. This one has a varifocal 4 to 9 millimeter lens with the EMT conduit port built in. And then we have the older version of this, the older brother version, which is the GS832 MIPC. It has built-in IR LEDs, so you can view at night. So if nighttime viewing is important to you, then using IR LEDs is a must. And then we have our basic, this one has an 802.11n wireless built in. And then we have our box camera. The box cameras are very versatile because you can put any type of lens on there. You can either put a fixed lens, which it comes with a 4 millimeter fixed lens, or you can put a varifocal lens on it, like a 2.8 to 12. If you put a varifocal lens on there, then it's you can adjust your field of view to get a perfect field of view, no matter where you place the camera. This one also has a built-in infrared cut filter removal system. So you can see so basically it removes IR filter. So if you use external IR LEDs with it too, then you can see at night. And then we have the bullet. This one has built-in IR LEDs. It does have a fixed 6 millimeter lens on it. And then we have our pan tilt camera. It has a 4.3 millimeter, and you can pan tilt through the NVR software or through the browser. So any other questions so far? So basically that is our webinar today, our introduction to IP cameras. If you have any further questions, you can feel free to contact me on my email. My email is support@goldenstateinst.com, and this is our website. So, if you need help with specing out a system, what you need, feel free to contact me. I'm here to help you. So, yes, Lee.
Yeah, what about local requirements in terms of the hardware for their computer? Should they have a separate NAS drive that's doing all the recording, or how much space is this going to take up? Could they record it on their one of the local computers for the data?
Or they can record the data on the web on the same hard drive as the operating system, which is I don't really recommend because it's constantly writing on that hard drive, and if that hard drive ever does fail, then you don't want the whole system to go down. So there are many ways of adding storage to a local computer, like either like physically adding another hard drive onto the machine, or you can use a NAS drive, network attached storage.
Or what about a USB attached drive? Is that a problem too then?
No, there's no problem with that. So you can use a USB attached drive too, or a eSATA drive. So
okay.
And
how big a hard drive do you need for typically, let's say, for 1 week's worth of monitoring before it overwrites again?
Well, it all depends. It depends on how much activity is in your picture. If you have a lot of motion and activity, then it's going to eat up more hard drive. But if your picture is static, most of the time just staring at a room, it's not going to require that much because it gets compressed a lot easier. And
okay.
it depends on what kind of compression you use too. You can use H.264 or MJPEG. It all depends on many factors.
Yeah.
And if you're recording 24 hours or if you're just recording on motion, because it's hard to tell unless you run it through a week first and then you see how much of your hard drive space is being used. Because every situation is a lot different.
Well, I'm just thinking if we spec it in, then would we just spec it in with a 500 gig NAS drive as part of the system?
Well, I mean, it depends on your camera set. Let's say a 4-camera system with like a 500 gig hard drive running at that. You probably go through it in about a week,
Okay.
or maybe like about a week. We'll just say about a week, But then that's
the
probably
price. The terabyte's not that expensive nowadays. Well, one other thing too, Vincent, about this. So it's all getting stored locally, but if you want to monitor it remotely, then you're depending upon the bandwidth of the network connection, right? The internet connection.
I mean, like if you monitor remotely, yeah, you're depending on your internet connection, and you can always play back the server. The NVR does have server capabilities where you can log on through a browser and pull view footages off of the NVR software.
Yeah. Because remember, I was doing those stores where they had the DSL and they had low bandwidth, and there was a real problem at the corporate office. They're bogging down their system. So with this, they're storing it locally, but if they want to monitor it remotely, then they still have that problem, right? They're DSL, they're trying to
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to monitor it remotely, you would pull a very low resolution stream from it. You will not, like when you're recording locally, you can record at the high resolution, but when you're monitoring it remotely, instead of pulling the megapixel stream, you can pull like a 100 by 300 resolution or something, and then that will help with their upload bandwidth.
All right, that sounds good. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Vincent. That was
No
real
problem.
helpful.
So any other questions before we conclude our webinar for today? Okay, so thank you everyone for attending our webinar, and just feel free to contact us, whenever you feel like it, if you have any other questions.